Josh, were you at the last meeting?
I don't know. If I wasn't, then I should abstain.
Okay. Probs?
Yes.
Steinbaum?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Let's see, Zochek?
Yes.
Solaro?
Yes.
And Smith?
Yes. You have the
Okay.
treasury report and the list of bills. Can I have a motion and then we can discuss them?
Okay, the statement as of 8/31, we had $389,820.76. There are 15 bills due. One was added for Ken Nelson, the planner, for $852.80. The total amount of bills due is $34,898.39, of which about 60%, 61% is for the HAB grant.
Okay. Any discussion, questions? Call a roll, please.
1 second, please. I'm just sending the link to Bob Tessier again, so 1 second.
Okay.
Okay. And roll call is Fish,
Yes.
Will Susan,
Yes.
McCarthy,
Yes.
Wazowski,
Yes.
Probs,
Yes.
Steinbaum,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Solaro,
Yes.
Zochek,
Yes.
and Smith.
Yes. Correspondence, you got the land use applications?
Yes. So land use applications are being uploaded to the OneDrive account. We had from Melissa an update on weed harvesting program maintenance tasks. So that included some costs and items that the weed harvesting staff are working on. And we received the weed harvesting bid from Northern Lights LLC.
I want to hold those Northern Lights bids till the executive session.
Right.
Okay. Land use, you got anybody discussion on the applications?
I think we'll hold that until later, once Bob Tessier's, Bob's on, but that's just a little later in the
Okay.
meeting.
How about the parks? Melissa want to give us a report on the weed harvesting and stuff, or whatever she's got there? Maintenance?
Well, so that's a little also further down in the actual agenda under
Okay.
DEP updates.
All right.
Sorry.
So the chairman's report is that we had advertised for bids for weed harvesting. We received the bids, we reviewed the bids. We only had one bidder, and we'll discuss those possibilities of that bid later on in an executive session, but we just had one bidder. And that's all I really have at this stage of the game. Commissioners want to report? Want to go around the table?
Where is the table?
We'll have that discussion later.
We'll have that later too. That's an executive session.
Yeah, maybe even under the chairman's report, I want you guys to think about, let's have a live meeting at some point here. If somebody still has some concerns, maybe they can join us by phone, but maybe it's time. I know a lot of public entities, councils, boards of education are starting to hold public meetings, being socially distanced. Don't get me wrong, but maybe we ought to start thinking about that.
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
What venue could we use?
Yeah, our town council's back, so.
Yeah, I know. I work for Board of Education that's back, and there are places we don't really get that much public in our case, maybe fortunately. So maybe we should start thinking about doing that.
Could we use a large venue?
Yes, we could. I'm sympathetic to that, Fred. Our normal place at the Lake Hopatcong, and maybe, with the table, with every other seat taken, certainly every other seat. And we don't get that much public, maybe a half a dozen people. Maybe it's not a bad deal. But if we have to, I don't know how much bigger it is, but I could still certainly arrange to get in Jefferson Township Board of Ed Administration Building over there on Route 181. We could still get that conference room, which wasn't much bigger, maybe a little bigger. I didn't want to get too much off the beaten path. I know Eric would volunteer the municipal building for us, but then you got that long ride down Weldon Road, which we were trying to avoid. So give it some thought, and maybe before the next meeting, we'll email everybody and take a little straw poll and see how we stand.
I just got one quick general question about the weeds on the lake. Has anybody experienced any problems? We used to get a lot of complaints years ago, people calling next door landing, emails and things like that about the problem. And I haven't seen anything in quite a while. So I'm just curious.
I think that Colleen and Marty Kane and certainly Fred have been out on the lake, and I haven't heard anything negative. So maybe it's not so bad, you know. That's
Exactly what I'm thinking. Yeah.
one of the things we're going to discuss in executive session later about the weed harvesting is maybe we don't need to do it at this point, but I'm open to whatever everybody else thinks.
That's what I'd like to get a feeling of, if anybody does know anything.
Well, I think maybe we can deal with that in executive session. We discuss whether or not we want to award that bid or just reject all the bids. I don't know. It's up to us, you know.
Nobody has any opinions.
Anybody have any opinions?
Well, I'll just say that in the beginning of the season, we did receive a lot of calls about floating weeds, and those kind of tapered off. But I can't say whether or not people haven't called because they know there's no harvesters on the lake, and maybe they aren't calling because they know that they're, you know, if they call, they're not going to get harvested, or if maybe, you know, the weeds are less on the lake.
Yeah, I'm out every weekend, and I got to tell you, I'm completely surprised how well the lake is without doing any harvesting. It's amazing.
I agree. We've been out also, and the lake has been fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that they exist, just maybe not all the way to the surface.
It
Yeah.
could be.
No, it's more changed than that. There were a lot of weeds early in the season, as Fred described. These were the ones that died off early, naturally. And so there were a lot of weeds. When the motorboats came out, there were a lot of floating weeds, but that was early in the season. Since then, this is the most free I've seen the lake of weeds in many years.
Yeah.
I agree.
No
I agree.
weeds in front of my house, or minimal for the first time. The north of the bridge, in that cove is the least weeds that I've seen in many years. Crescent Cove, which was bad at one time, since those bubblers went in, those weeds have disappeared. Great Cove, there's been some complaints of weeds, but they're mainly floating weeds that have washed in from the motorboat use. So I think the necessity for cutting, to me, which we'll discuss later, I guess, is not there now. But it's very interesting to discuss what we need to do for next year.
What do you attribute this to, Fred? I don't get why there's...
Yeah, so
I don't know.
basically to summarize the year, so last year we had a very mild winter, so we were expecting a lot of weeds. And we actually, like Fred mentioned, we did get a lot of weeds early on. We got the cool water species, like the curly leaf pondweed, really came in with a vengeance. There was some cutting because of fragmentation, because of the boating, and a lot of that was because of COVID. You know, boating was one of those things that if you were, you know, in your boat, it's easy to social distance from other boats. So a lot of people were out on the lake. There were some floaters, but remember, keep in mind, even as early as May, I was showing that the clarity wasn't as high as it has been in the past. Right. So I think between a combination of inorganic material and algae in the water, whether it's the good algae or the bad algae, the water was cloudier this year after we went through spring, and we have those Secchi depths to show that. So cloudier water meant, you know, not as much sunlight reaching the sediment. So I think those summer weeds really didn't take off like they normally do. And again, I'm attributing that looking at our Secchi depths, how much lower they are this year compared to past years.
Right, when you use the word cloudy, I think that's a bit of an understatement, that the water really has been darker. I first noticed it last year, and it's even darker this year. And we talked about it being the brown algae possibly earlier in the year. We had that discussion. I don't know if that's what it is, but you just can't see bottom in many places that you could before, and it's concerning to me, and it certainly helped the weeds, but should that be another cause for concern?
See, that's something that we're going to have to look into with the algae. So keep in mind, up until last year, we were only taking a general scan of the algae. So starting last year, we were actually doing counts. And the counts we've been doing have been focusing almost entirely on the cyanobacteria. So I think what we have to do now is start doing counts for all the algae. So if we do that, then I can get a better feel for how much algae is out there. The other thing too is I can look at chlorophyll A. So I'll compare this year's chlorophyll A, which measures all the algae biomass. I'll compare this year to last year and see how that has changed, because even if we have less cyanobacteria, if we have more of the good algae, it can still make the water look darker and browner. So I'll take a look at that. And then the last thing we have to look at when we're doing our annual year-end review is look at the measurements of total suspended solids. So we actually take measurements of, it's called TSS. So I'll look at those concentrations and see if they were higher this year compared to last year. So with all that information, I'll be able to give you a better sense in about by October, what's attributing this darker color. Is it because of inorganic material in the water, because of algae, because of good algae, bad algae? I should have some more information on that once our monitoring is done in September and we have October to review that data.
What are the impacts of the darker water on the ecology?
It's sort of like Fred mentioned, one of the advantages of having the darker water or cloudier water is less plant growth, because the plants need sunlight hitting the sediments. So it's sort of that balance in the shallower waters. What would you rather have? Clear water with aquatic vegetation or cloudy water with very few vegetation? Most of the time we prefer the clear water and deal with the weeds, because you'd rather deal with weeds than deal with the cyanobacteria. Once you have the cyanobacteria, from what we've seen last year, they're very difficult to get under control, and then you're dealing with cyanotoxins, and you have to close beaches, you have to put up advisories. Where the weeds are a problem, but they're more easily managed. You don't have to close a lake down because of weeds. So, you want a nice balance, and the lake is going to swing from time to time, because part of that's going to be based on weather. But we would prefer to have clearer water with more plants.
Yeah, and that's really my concern, because you think about Lake George and Lake Tahoe, they're both known for their clear waters. They're, quote, pure clear waters. Yeah, so I'm really concerned.
And they're pretty deep, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I did some of my graduate work at Lake Tahoe. Lake Tahoe is, at its deepest, it's 505 meters. Which is about 1,600 feet deep.
Yeah, I mean, there was an article that I came across that stated that the water was deteriorating because now you can only see the bottom at 60 feet, as opposed to 100 a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a lot different from our lake.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Fred, would this year's boat traffic have anything to do with the amount of weeds we didn't have?
Well, the boat traffic certainly helped to spread the weeds, and certain plants like Eurasian water milfoil, they grow primarily through fragmentation, so that may help to distribute the weeds around. But later in the season, we didn't see a lot of submerged plant growth. But yeah, boat traffic can easily spread those weeds around. Now, one of the good things was, even though a lot of people were out on the lake early in the season, those cold water plants like curly leaf pondweed, they grow primarily through seeds. It's the later summer ones, like your Asian water milfoil, that grows through fragmentation. So yeah, the boating traffic and cutting the weeds, that can help to distribute the weeds around.
There was an awful lot of floating weeds from the boat traffic. You'd see them on Mondays after the weekend. An awful lot of floating weeds early in the season when there were those early season weeds to be cut.
Yeah,
That's largely diminished now as we near the end of.
yep. I mean, we've seen that at other lakes too, like Mohawk, Highland lakes. That, you know, there were more weeds early in the year, and because of COVID, a lot of people were recreating on the lakes that they lived on. So between mild winter, more weeds, and more people on the lakes, we did see a lot of floaters in a lot of these systems.
Okay,
I just got one thing for reports, just to report.
sure.
We had our, seems to be about a quarterly mayor's meeting now, Colleen, Marty. What are we doing, about every 3 months now? So we had a meeting last Thursday with the 4 lake mayors, just to bring everybody up to speed. Colleen brought us up to speed on a lot of things. I think it's great that the 4 of us, talk regularly to, get on board, make sure we're all on the same page as far as the lake is concerned. And I think it's been very productive. And I thank Marty and the foundation for, facilitating that. I know Ron was on that as well, but it's good. We're all on the same page. We're all working toward the same goal. And we got some updates that came up about the weeds and such. So, but it's good that we're all, talking on the same page. So I just wanted to bring that up.
That's good. All right. Anything else for the good of the order? And otherwise, we'll move on to the foundation report.
Hi, thank you. Good to see everybody. Yeah, it's amazing, huh? We have high water on the lake in September. There's like low weeds. There's no active algal blooms, and yet we still don't feel good about things. Right?
It's 2020.
Never happy.
Yeah, it is amazing. All right. Thank you, Eric, for mentioning the mayor's meeting. And the other group that we're trying to sponsor, and Colleen's been an active part of, has been our Lakes group. So far, it's a small lakes group. It's been us, Greenwood Lake, and Deal Lake, but we're going to make the first big move this month to expand it. And the overall idea of that group is to be an advocacy for lakes across New Jersey, because as many of you know, the shore gets a lot of money, and there is no fund for lakes. And this was the year that we thought we had finally hit it, that the governor put $2 million in the budget for lakes. But with the COVID-19 budget crunch, it's been now removed. So certainly the lakes could use advocacy. And it's not just about, our lake. It's literally, there's no money for any lakes across New Jersey. So it's something we're going to continue to work on, and we're going to spread that group, and hopefully it will be a voice through many counties and many legislators of both parties in the state, to speak for the lakes. We don't need a lot of money. Just, a few $1 million means a lot to the lakes of the state, which in the size of the New Jersey budget is almost nothing, but it's important. So we're going to keep pushing that. There was a Boating Regulation Commission meeting last week, the first one in actually since March, down in Toms River. Most of the conversation was about wake surf boats. They still are working on their final legislation, or actually, regulation for the state of New Jersey. But we did have the topic, it seems, not just at Lake Hopatcong, but at lakes across the state. There's been a lot of bad boating issues. I mean, I'm sure many of you have been out in boats and you go, oh my God, not only are there an incredibly large amount of boats, but there's a lot of bad behavior in boats. That's been noted across the state. And as you can imagine, there's just not enough state troopers to go around for all the reports they're getting. But one thing we did talk about, because of the unprecedented boat traffic in Byrams Cove this year, there's been days that over 400 boats have been counted in Byram Cove.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's a lot of boats in one cove in our lake. Is the possibility of creating a buffer around the a certain amount of feet offshore, because a large number of residents are complaining this year that they had actually trouble getting out from their docks or getting back into their docks because the whole idea of the navigation channel disappeared. So it's something, certainly worth discussing at the Lake Hopatcong Commission level, whether putting a buoy 50 feet offshore every 100 yards or something makes sense, and if it's possible to do, something we can discuss further down the line. But certainly some of the resources at the lake were pushed to extreme levels this year. I think most old timers on the lake would agree they've never seen the lake any busier than this year on Saturdays and Sundays. Monday through Fridays was okay, but Saturdays and Sundays got a little crazy out there. And the final thing was just on our advocacy front. Not too much going on, but we did have a real nice conversation with Tony Bucco, who came up to visit the lake and kind of take a look around. And we'll continue our efforts. Anybody that'll meet with us, we are happy to meet with. If they care about the lake, we don't care where they're from or who they are. We just love them all. So that's about it from here. Any questions, I'll be happy to kind of take.
Glad you brought up about boat user fees, about it's getting my favorite subject, about Byrams Cove. It's just crazy in there this year. I've never seen it this bad, and the activities going on, it's totally out of control. And I really think that it's ruining boating for an awful lot of people, especially the people that are trying to live in that area. And we need to do something about it. And one of the solutions, I think, is boat user fees. And I'm going to be bringing that topic up again. I think that can help, especially if we can direct some of the funds directly to aid water quality. One of the things that comes to mind is the human pollution that's caused in that cove with the people in there for 12 hours at a time, drinking, etc. There was actual bars set up on boats, floating bars. It's a crazy situation. So I'm glad you brought it up. It's out of control.
Is anyone videotaping that activity?
We do have video. We've had a real series of issues because of overuse of the lake. We have, there were some issues at Byrams Cove. There was one fist fight that broke out actually on a rafting that included beer bottles being thrown. Obviously, alcohol was involved. There's also been a lot of issues. I don't know if you've noticed, those of you that live on the lake, of boating at night, including at excessive speeds of boats at the night with no lights on.
And
which
jet
is,
skis.
we used to get that once in a while, but this year we're getting it a lot. And the state police are starting to pay attention to those issues. Jet skis with no lights going fast at night. It's amazing we have not had a tragic accident on the lake caused by this summer. There's been a lot of close calls, but it's going to happen sooner or later because there's just too many incidents going on. I'm sure many of you have seen it yourself that live on the lake.
The jet skis at night too, dusk, have been a problem. I've noticed them out.
There's been jet skis on 10 o'clock at night, racing through Byrams Cove and other places. And the state police have said that it's not just Lake Hopatcong. There's just, with the COVID-19 and a lot of people in boats and people just kind of pent up, they're seeing just a lot of bad behavior. We're seeing it also. It's hard. Lake Hopatcong isn't that large when you put that many boats out there, and how to, share the lake, if you will, is going to be an issue for the Lake Hopatcong Commission for years to come. As to, how do you maximize its resources without it being dangerous out there?
And there's no limit to how many people can get on the lake, right?
Correct.
And the state police just enforce whatever the law.
And you know, for instance, when that incident that broke out with the bottle throwing and the fist fight, there were two state police on the lake at the time. One was doing CPR at the time, and there was one boat really left on the lake to address it. And you really can't get on the state police for that. They're stretched really thin this year. I mean, there's places at the shore that make us look like, we're not even busy. I mean, it's that crazy in some of the places down at the shore this year. So it's something we have to deal with, but we don't want to wait until there's a tragic accident.
Are the state police still sharing boats with the sheriff's officers in Morris County and such? Or
Yeah, on weekends, Sheriff Gannon's been wonderful, and he continued really what Sheriff Rochefort had done as far as putting sheriff's officers in the boats at night. So there's extra patrols that we normally wouldn't be able to afford otherwise. But let's say you have two boats on the lake at night. It's a big lake at night to try to, hopefully, catch what's going on.
even if they were to drive around the lake every once in a while and flash their lights, I think that would help, because right now everybody knows there's no police out there and it's like the Wild West at night.
Well, Dan, on weekends they've had boats on the lake till midnight on Fridays and Saturdays. Maybe you're right. They need to flash their lights a lot, even if they're not chasing anybody, just to make their presence known.
One other question, just getting back to the Boat Regulation Commission. Obviously, COVID has screwed everything up this year, but they had been coming to Lake Hopatcong. Are they planning on coming back to Lake Hopatcong next year?
Thank you for asking. They were supposed to be here in July. Obviously, the meeting got canceled. Right now, we're scheduled for July 14th, 2021 at the Lake Hopatcong Yacht Club.
Good.
Good job, Marty. Marty, another question on that. You mentioned about the Regulation Commission with wakeboard and boats. Do you have any feeling for the type of regulation they might suggest?
Basically they have said to us, if you come with us with a consensus of the lake, they just don't want to get, caught in something where half the lake wants one thing and half the lake. But if you bring us something that has a consensus of support, they will take it forward.
Very good. Very good. Thank you.
It's just a question of us I think, maybe it's a subcommittee of the Lake Hopatcong Commission to come up with some ideas of how to make things better.
Mm-hmm.
I think that committee of the mayors can bring that stuff to each town and talk about it.
Well,
it's just a question of coming up with ideas that maybe are used on other lakes that just improve the situation. Whether it's navigation buoys, whether it's anything else, Fred. There may be a small expense involved, like with buoys, but I think we could find the funding for that.
Yeah, I had planned a proposal. I thought it would be better presented in an open meeting, where we could get together and look at something at the same time. So hopefully we'll be able to have a meeting together in the near future.
You were talking about user fees, right, Fred?
Yes, but that has nothing to do with this topic.
Well, user fees would restrict access because it would be cost if you had to get a sticker on your boat. And it would provide funding for enforcement.
But they probably, yes, you're right, it would, but they probably come anyway, whether they pay or not. But you're right, we could add to the enforcement.
Well, that brings up the whole matter of overutilization of the lake, and which has been alluded to, which we don't really know how to address. Colleen and I have discussed this for years now, looking for some statute somewhere that has some kind of guideline where you don't arbitrarily come in and say, well, so many boats per square mile or per acre of lake or whatever. And we haven't been able to find anything, rather than come up de novo with something on a state lake that's publicly owned. We have so many docks, we have so many marinas. The marinas are adding space with their stacking, these stacking methods to just increase the boats. that can be stored by the lake, as well as the influx of fishermen and everybody else who just comes up for the day. So if anybody knows of any guidelines on any lake anywhere or body of water of anywhere where for safety reasons and general utilization and the public good can come up with a figure of so many boats per acre or per mile, per square mile, I haven't seen anything like that.
There have to be other lakes that have this severe issue and have addressed it.
Yeah, we haven't found it.
Fred, have you heard anything?
Not really, because a lot of it has to do with the type of lake it is, so, and the type of recreation that's going on. So if you're talking about boating or jet skiing, the number of boats that should safely be on per acre is probably different than the number of boats that are recreating from a fishery perspective. So it really varies on the recreational use as well as the type of lake. Do you have a shallow lake? Do you have a deep lake? Or do you have a lake like Lake Hopatcong, which is a combination? You have a lot of shallow bays and coves, and then you have a deep middle portion. So your density of boats may actually vary depending on where you're at. So if you're in one of the shallow areas where there's a lot of fishing, the density could be substantially different than out in the main body of the lake.
You know what some of the lakes have done to try to limit the amount of mooring is you have to moor to a mooring buoy, and they limit the number of mooring buoys. It's hard to imagine, you know, in Lake George, it's one thing where the lake is so large, it's kind of hard to imagine a similar process at Lake Hopatcong. And obviously this year is extreme, the amount of boat traffic on weekends. You know, between COVID-19 and the gorgeous weather, it's just been unbelievable how busy it's out there. So you don't want to overreact to what might be a given year, but obviously we've all seen, you know, traffic on Lake Hopatcong. It's a beautiful resource, and weekends it tends to be overcrowded.
And another thing you didn't mention, Marty, we've been blessed the last few years with deep water, plenty of rain.
Yes.
We've been over.
That's right.
We're not now, we're 2 inches below the top, but we've been over the dam most of the time for the last few years, just to remind some people of the terrible fights we had here when the lake's been low, and that's boating and navigating.
Well, for mid-September, the lake's very high, for sure.
And it has.
And that's the other thing, is the boating season is probably going to go very late this year.
Absolutely.
And there's no really protected waters by the DEP or EPA in this lake. If there were, that's where you can start restricting boat traffic, but there isn't. Like down the shore or down where there's reefs, they actually restrict the traffic and the buoys that are allowed to tie up there.
Well, we have no wake zones.
That's correct, because of the residences
that are restricted.
Yeah. And how many people go by them? You know, not too many.
We have one guy we see every morning, doesn't slow down, just comes flying through. Yeah. Oblivious.
Yeah. He knows he can get away with it.
Absolutely.
Well, we will continue working from our point. I mean, security is a major aspect for us. We fund the state police a significant amount each year to extend the amount of patrols that they do. And they voluntarily have been moving them later in the day because they realize having patrols on the lake in the mornings in the summer really doesn't amount to anything. You really need them later in the day. That's when, you know, you get your issues.
Yeah.
Okay, so can we move on to Princeton Hydro's report? Fred?
Okay, yeah, there's a lot going on, and a lot of this is stuff that's in motion and in progress. But I just wanted to let everyone know that GreenVest will be sending some material to the commission. They're actually waiting on some stuff that we have to forward to them. They want to include a whole package. So, I mean, even though you know us at Princeton Hydro, they want to make sure that our material is included with the package that they'll be sending you. So I'm hoping that's going to go out tomorrow. Working on the paperwork for the 319, the new 319 grant. So Michelle and Colleen have actually been doing the brunt of that work. I'm hoping to get that synthesized and finished by the end of tomorrow. Colleen, I'm working on the projects for the supplemental environmental projects, so we can post those. I've received an email, and I still have to email Carrie Green back. She was asking about finalizing the WIP, so I will reach out to her and make sure that we get that finalized. And then to give you an update on the projects for the HAB grant. So the green clean treatment was completed, and you already know the big Phoslock treatment was done. The biochar has been installed, but we did hear from Jefferson there were some issues with one of the stormwater structures. It sounds like it was backing up a little from the last storm.
Yeah.
I talked to JP about that, and it sounds like what he did was he used a mix of particle sizes in the biochar. The reason why he did that is he wanted to increase the amount of contact time between the stormwater and the biochar. We probably did too much of a good job. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace that with the larger material. So he's going to take care of that. And even though the Lake Forest, we haven't heard any complaints about the Lake Forest BMP, we're just going to replace both. So there's no issue with any sort of backing up or flooding. Associated with that, JP is working with, I believe the gentleman's name is Mr. Schultz, about coordinating about the aquafilter projects in Hopatcong. We're looking at the possibility of Jefferson, helping in cleaning out those basins. The contractor we had, it turns out he's extremely busy and he's having a hard time keeping up with his work. But with conversations with Jefferson, they said that they may be able to help out. So we're going to work with them and see if we can arrange something to have them clean out those basins so that we can fill them up with biochar. I really want to get the aquafilter project complete before the end of this year so we can do some stormwater monitoring fall going into winter and spring. The aeration systems are underway. So just to let you know, some of our guys, we had some guys were in an accident on Friday. They were supposed to be up at Ashley Cove to treat and to meet with some of the lakeshore community members about the aeration systems. That did not happen. We will reschedule that. And we'll also reschedule that Ashley Cove treatment with Phoslock as well. If we don't hit our 7 treatments for Ashley Cove this year, we'll roll them over into next year to make sure that whatever the total amount of 14, to make sure that they get completed next year. And that's what I have with the HAB grant. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm working on. There's also some potential sources of funding that we're looking into. We're hoping that NIFWIF is going to open again with potential funding now that they've made their announcement on their 2020 grants. So we want to try to stay as proactive and ahead of the ball with that. So as soon as we know something's available, we can get our resources together because to put those applications together, it takes quite a bit of work, and we want to make sure we're as up to speed as possible on that. So a lot going on. Once the 319 grant is up and running, there's going to be a number of projects associated with that that will be implemented as well.
Thank you, Fred.
Yep.
Any questions?
I was wondering if anything is new with the quarry investigation.
So, and Colleen may be able to answer that. I know at last month's meeting, I believe you were holding off on approving if you wanted me to, if you wanted me to do that review of the quarry report. But and I know that was temporarily postponed last month. So that's what I have on the quarry.
And we do have that on the agenda for this month. And nothing new from DEP really on that right now.
Okay, we move on to updates. State Park, is that Melissa or Josh?
It'd be Melissa.
Melissa.
Hi, everybody. Hope everyone's doing okay.
Okay.
So, I don't really have a whole lot. Just we have Mike and the 4 hourly employees working at the Franklin building. They've been reporting there daily. They've been working on grounds and buildings and grounds maintenance. All the equipment is obviously stored at Franklin by now. One dump truck is being scheduled for repairs for the driver's side wheel has a leak.
Bob Tessier, may I help you?
Oh, I'm sorry. And the one pickup did
Good.
go in for brake repairs in August. Outside of that, they're starting to go ahead and purchase some extra materials to get the garage doors sanded and repainted, working around the building and grounds, mowing, weed whacking, getting some attention to the area that had been neglected because they were always on the water in previous seasons. And as far as that would be it for the weed harvesting program. I don't know if anybody has any questions about that so far.
Hiring of the mechanic.
So I did send in that as a priority. Not sure what the status is.
No, the hiring, Fred, has been frozen on the state level. State is frozen the hiring.
I'm aware, but we were told that that wouldn't apply because this was a replacement.
But
Well, we were told that
it's true, 100% true.
I
Apparently.
think we asked if an exception could be made. We haven't been told that it wouldn't apply at this point. So, and I've been tapping the governor's office and DEP just about every week. So
Yeah. It makes sense, Fred, that would be the philosophy, but we haven't got them to confirm that.
And I can only speak from our end as far as parks go. I know that in the past, whenever we lose someone from retirement or some other matter, we don't get replacements. We haven't gotten replacements.
I know that from government budgeting. That's the easiest way to cut the budget. Nobody gets hurt. You get a vacancy, don't replace it, nobody gets hurt. That's a bad thing, but that's what they do.
I would submit that this is a totally different situation.
I agree with you, Dan, but we'll have to
We
see.
are
Yeah.
a three-headed unicorn here, and people need to understand that. If we don't have a mechanic working these harvesters over the winter, we're not going to have a weed harvesting program in the summer. It's as simple as that. So this needs to be a priority.
And Dan, I think we can address that piece of, your philosophy there later on in an executive session.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions about the program? Okay.
Hey, Josh, you're up.
Well, I was just going to add one last thing. I did submit the application for the 22-inch drawdown for review, and just waiting to get that back. Once I get the permit, then I will share with everybody that it's official.
Okay, good.
Are we still calling this a pilot program? Because technically, according to the plan, it should be 26 inches.
Well, I know that we continue to follow the pilot program, and I believe in the past we've clarified that it's what we were going to continue to follow. I don't know that we're still calling it the pilot program at this point.
Pilot program became the program.
Without changing the water level management plan.
Well, and I guess to that point is we know that we're also moving towards reviewing the plan and updating it. And that has been brought up in the past regarding this drawdown. So I think that's being something that's being addressed and discussed with the CIC meetings.
Okay. Well,
correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, but
in my mind, it's still a pilot program because for the number of years that it's been a pilot program, we haven't had really tough winters since the winter of 2014 to 2015. So if we have a really bad winter, then we're going to see how this pilot program really works.
I think you're correct on that, Dan. The only update I have is the Citizen Advisory Committee. We are looking to have resume again in October. So those of you that are on that committee, an email should be coming out in the next week or so on that.
Do you have a proposed date?
I mean, I'll have to go look back. We picked the first or second, I forget, Tuesday or Wednesday of the week. So we'll try to follow that same schedule. I'll have to go
Josh,
look.
do we have any minutes from the last meeting? Something came up regarding an economic impact report,
So,
the impact of the HAVs. And I know it
Okay.
came up at the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting. And I believe the DEP representatives there said that they were going to work on that, but I need to see it in the minutes to
I will, yeah, I will, our last minutes will also go out with that email.
One question. So I think we heard from Mayor DiFilippo that the sewer project was moving ahead. Do you have any updates from the DEP side on that?
I did see a permit that finally got approved for it, so.
But any idea on when construction might start?
They were
I
gonna
can-
go to bid in the fall, I heard. They're gonna go to bid in
I
the
can
fall.
actually share because I actually met with someone today regarding this, it's just by coincidence. They met with me and explained that they're going to be going out to bid. The hope is that if everything falls into place, hopefully starting November, they'll start. But of course, everything's dependent on the bid process and going through that process and what comes back. And it's approximately 6 months.
But it would be completed before the next season when you opened up the beach.
Right, that's why they're trying to start in November, Ron, so they could finish by Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, great.
Yeah,
Well, it depends on weather.
that too.
Okay. We got any Fred, do you have any or Colleen, grant updates?
Just from what Fred updated on earlier with each of the projects, nothing really new on the rain gardens. I guess that Rutgers is working on a kind of a larger scale project for Byrams Cove Community Club. So we'll see what comes from that. Hopefully, we've asked to see the plans and are looking to Rutgers to send those over.
Good. Are we on committee updates?
Yep.
Land use? Is that you, Bob?
He's muted right now. Bob, you're muted. There
Okay.
you go.
While we're waiting for him to unmute, a quick announcement. The Giants have just scored a touchdown and taken the lead 10-3.
Hey, go Big Blue.
Not good for us Steeler fans.
I might have known, Dan.
I'm glad,
Big Ben is done.
I'm glad they're playing football.
Yes.
Okay, so we had a land use committee meeting, and Colleen and the two planners and I guess the land use committee, right? Fred, you were on it, and we talked about trying to organize better our review of the applications by having one of them take two of the towns and the other one taking two of the towns. We did talk about that seminar. I don't know how many people on the commission went to that seminar about the new stormwater regs. Who was that put on by, Colleen?
The Watershed Institute.
Watershed Institute. So I actually listened to that, and they have a new ordinance that's, a draft model ordinance, and those DEP stormwater regulations are going to be green infrastructure regulations. So we were all thinking that this would be the ideal time to try to develop and prepare an ordinance to go to the municipalities with, because they will all have to adopt new stormwater ordinances by, what's the date, Colleen?
It's early March of 2021.
Right, they have to do it by early March. So that's really the opportunity to get all these ordinances straight. We did get a report from one of the planners about the existing ordinances, but we felt he should really give us a matrix that says what every town has, so we can compare their regulations for docks and impervious coverage and those things. So hopefully we'll have that by the next meeting, which I think is going to be next week. And we also sent out that model ordinance to look at. If they're all updating their stormwater, it appears to me this is the ideal opportunity to work with Princeton Hydro and the model ordinance and come up with a stricter method for new construction that involves rain gardens and vegetative swales and all those types of things as we're increasing the impervious coverage. And not just on properties around the contiguous to the lake, but everything in the drainage basin should be subject to a higher standard because we're fighting a losing battle. So we're going to continue to have meetings. When's our next meeting, Colleen, next week?
The Land Use Committee meeting will meet on October 8th.
Oh, sorry. We needed a little time to get them to do the matrix for us on October 8th. So hopefully we'll make some progress. There was one application that we were looking at that you sent around, Colleen. I wrote down in Hopatcong, they amended the application to reduce the impact.
I know that there was one in Landing where they amended, and that was 27 Sunset, I think was the application, and the applicant came back and greatly reduced their impervious cover. So that was a good outcome. I think they're actually before the board tonight.
But they still have a variance, right?
Yeah, maybe 3%.
Right. Wasn't there the Burke application?
Correct, that's the one. Yeah.
Okay. And they're using that. They're not recharging it. They're putting it into a cistern or something, right?
That I'm not exactly.
Yeah, I looked at the plans, but we need to get a new ordinance standard and a better control out of what they're granting variances on, who's granted variances, when they've done it, and what the current standards are, and what this new proposed ordinance is. So it's a good opportunity because all the towns will have to, by DEP regulations, adopt new stormwater. So what did I miss, Colleen?
Well, I think that covers it. I would say that the current and even the new stormwater regs that will come out will address only major development. And one way that we can be more protective of the water quality around the lake is to include minor development and set criteria for when green stormwater infrastructure would be required. And I'll just give a shout out to Clay because I think he did an excellent job. Clay works for Princeton Hydro. He did a great job in that Watershed Institute webinar.
And right, I think the thresholds of the new regs are a little bit lower, but the towns can make them lower. And because of the unique situation of Lake Hopatcong and that large watershed, this is really our chance to do that. Fred, did you have anybody else on the committee? Ann?
Yeah, you just mentioned something in passing that's really a big deal. I think that we've been serving or receiving information just on properties that are within how many feet of the lake, Colleen? I've forgotten. 200 feet. 200 feet, but you mentioned a few times that, and you're correct, Bob, that it should be the whole watershed, the whole drainage basin. And that's quite an undertaking for us, even with our help, our legal help, or our advisory help with it. And I don't know if we're capable of doing that at this point. And if we are going to undertake it, then we have to really change the way we're notifying the towns and, demand a lot more information on a lot more projects.
Which reminds me, one of the things, Fred, we talked about was the timing problem, which I think is making us look, perhaps the mayor said this in the meeting, make us look like a disruptor showing up at the hearing at the public hearing at the last minute, because we only get their review staff get these applications well in advance of the meeting. But we, like the general public, only get these notices a few days before the meeting. And that's by ordinance. So we asked Ken Nelson to look at coming up with an amended ordinance that would would require the municipality, when they send it to the municipal engineer, when they send it to their municipal planner, when they send it to their municipal attorney, they would send it to the commission. We would be another recipient. Doesn't, it makes more work, but at least then we have time to contact the applicant, contact the engineer before the hearing, before all the reviews are cast in stone. And we have a lot better opportunity, and we'll look more like somebody who's part of the process rather than someone who's showing up at the public hearing and objecting.
You got a point.
We also had, we've had 2 requests for kind of a checklist
Right.
from the municipalities to say, so that they can hand it to the applicants and show what the commission is looking for. So, that their engineers, the applicant's engineers, can incorporate green stormwater infrastructure or be more mindful of impervious surface coverage, going into the application process. So I think that is something that can be put together alongside this ordinance review and provided to the municipalities.
You'd be surprised. Roxbury does have those checklists, and the contractors, planners, the architects, they don't really pay attention to it. They'll go through it. This you need, this you need, this you don't need. When in fact they do need certain things.
I don't know if there's any statutory support for this anywhere. I haven't obviously researched it, but
So
I know
in the zoning laws.
Yeah, I know, but when I fill out applications on behalf of clients, we have to submit the packet, and we have to then be declared complete
Right.
before we can notice, and then give the 10 days. So maybe we could have our checklist, things that we're looking for, and maybe we could see the application stuff earlier as part of that application being deemed complete process, so we have more lead time.
That's the place to be at, Dan. You're right.
Is that some place we can be at?
I think that's up to the municipality, but if it's in the zoning ordinance, which the whole completeness process is,
yes, it is.
We could be written into that. That's where we want to be, early in the process, not at the end, looking at it and going, "Oh my God."
Well, that might help your salutary purpose of coming in earlier rather than coming in at the end, appearing as an objector.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right now
each town is different too.
Yeah, there's instances where we're getting them, 3 days before the hearing, and that's tricky to try and get things back.
Well, maybe this could be brought up at the next mayor's meeting.
Yeah.
Yes, hopefully maybe Ken will have looked at all the ordinances by that time, and we can have some suggestion. Then we can be more helpful than sitting back and saying, "What the heck happened here?"
Okay. Ice retardant?
Okay, we did have a meeting in between the last commission meeting. We have a very refined product, I believe. I thought, Colleen, we were going to have something to present to the commission so that they could authorize us to take this show on the road to the various towns, starting with Hopatcong, because we have a working model of a suggested update to the Hopatcong ordinance, and I figured we'd start there, but I understood. What I would like to do is to have our proposal presented to this group and get the blessing of this group before we, go to the towns with it. So, Colleen, do we have something that we could present at some point?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I guess that was a miscommunication on my part. I will put that together and I can send it out to the group.
So maybe next month we could have something to look at, and then everybody could give their input, and then maybe we could go to the towns. Did I miss anything, Todd or Fred?
No, I think we submitted some pictures to use in that brief presentation.
Yes, I did submit some pictures.
And would this be by ordinance?
Yes.
So we want to maybe coordinate the timing if we're doing some ordinance recommendations too, right?
That would be good.
Or our ordinance might be easier to pass, so maybe we don't want to coordinate.
Right, or do it first and say, just mention we're doing additional things, right?
Yeah, I'd like to step up with this because we're approaching another winter. I don't know what kind of winter we're going to have, but
Right. I wasn't suggesting slowing it down, but at least making it part of the process.
okay.
Okay, anything else on ice retardant? All right, Colleen, we got new items, Morris Park 319 update.
Oh, that was just kind of a quick update that next month, so I think it was, I don't know if it was mentioned tonight or in an earlier meeting today, sorry. So the commission received a 319 grant that we talked about at our last meeting. Morris County Parks also received a 319 grant through DEP, and they'll be updating us on their projects that they're going to tackle with their grant at the October meeting. So we'll have them have a 5 or 10 minute presentation.
And if I could, they're also going to update us on what they're doing over with the pavilion at Lee's Park, which is outside that, but we're kind of curious about how that's progressing.
Okay, what about the Higlin?
Okay, so that was Green Ponds Association is called Higlin, and if you remember, they were going to do a demonstration of their dash boats, diver assisted suction something. What is it? Diver assisted suction harvesting, and and then also their sonar technology. So we've, at our July meeting, we approved the agreement. The commission and foundation have signed that agreement and sent it back to Higlin. They'll be getting back in touch with us about when they're going to schedule that.
They're going to do it before the winter, right?
I'm not sure if they're planning, for the end of this season or for early next season.
Okay.
At this point.
All right. So now we're at the public comment. We're going to open the meeting to the public.
Yes, if anyone would like to speak, I think they can raise their hand and then I can allow you to speak. Anybody have any questions?
Can you tell how many are out there, Colleen?
We have 6 attendees.
Okay, hearing none.
Hey, could I just, I'll just want to put in something as a public member, how impressed I am with the work that's being done by the whole Habs team this summer. And, from Fred's whole team and Colleen, it's like amazing amount of work being generated. Just at today's DEP meeting, they complimented amongst all the lakes in the state of New Jersey, how much work is coming out of Lake Hopatcong. And I think, Fred and his team and Colleen both deserve all the credit for that. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Kudos.
Okay.
Thank you.
Not hearing any comments, I'm going to close the public hearing. Is this a...
Are we having an executive session?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Maybe...
I think we should,
go ahead.
Sorry, take action on that before we...
Let's take action on this resolution 2012. Colleen, you want to go through with that? Let's go.
So that was just, that was the addendum to the general consulting contract from Princeton Hydro that would allow Fred to review the existing conditions report from the Corey's consultant and also
He's going to
allow for, if there's testimony required, it would, it sets a cost for, an hourly cost for that.
If we have to have a hearing, yes. Okay.
Right.
Everybody familiar with that addendum? We talked about it before.
Mm-hmm.
I need a motion to approve it.
So moved.
Is there a second? Is there any comments, questions? Call a roll, please.
Who had the second on that? Sorry, I didn't hear it.
I think I seconded, but others did too. You can
Okay.
if you want.
Dan gets it. Okay.
Okay.
Crowley,
Yes.
Fish,
Yes.
Will Susan,
Yes.
McCarthy,
Yes.
Ozowski,
Yes.
Progs,
Yes.
Steinbaum,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Tessier,
Yes.
Solaro,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're going to move to executive session. Now it gets tricky, guys and girls. So we're going to have to sign out of here, sign into that email that Colleen sent you for the executive session. When we're done with that, you have to sign out of there and sign back in over here.
Good luck,
If I don't
everyone.
see you, if I don't
Mark,
see everybody, have a
Mark,
nice
you're
week.
laughing. Did you take copious notes, Mark?
Yeah. I may lose everybody, so.
There is a way
No,
inside
no,
Zoom,
I want you to
Colleen.
take copious notes. Fred gets it. You should get it. Fred's got it.
Hey, good night,
Anyway.
All right.
Oh, come on.
Let's give it a
Oh, that's
try.
it, Marty.
All right. Yeah,
Take care, folks. Good seeing everybody.
all right.
Take care.
I'll leave on this note, Pittsburgh score, Giants
And Fred's coming over with us,
What's the
right?
score? What's the score, Fred?
No.
9, Giants over Pittsburgh.
And
Dr.
I-
Lobno, you're coming with us to the executive session.
I don't think Fred needs
Yeah,
to be.
come to the executive session. It's not
I
a
don't think
problem.
there's,
I want to talk about the quarry litigation.
Yes, I think he should participate.
We have to talk about the bids. We're not going to talk about the personnel.
What about the quarry litigation?
He's going to
I
talk.
don't know that there's not much to
Not much
update
on
on
the
that for
quarry.
this.
Bob, there's nothing tonight on the quarry. No update.
There's really nothing new on that.
But the main thing tonight is the weed.
And we are still in public meetings. So just so everyone realizes that.
Yeah, so we're going to do the public bid on the weed harvesting.
But we could put that on next month's agenda then, Ron, right?
Yes, well, because we'll have an update by then, hopefully. Yes.
Okay.
Do we leave now?
Leave now and go to that other email and go into the executive session. Yes.
Bye.
Okay, and so you don't need me?
No, we don't
No,
need.
Fred, I think you're okay to go. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thanks, buddy.
Take care.
I'll have questions for Fred.
I have to find the other email.
How do I get out of here?
Try to hit the X button, but it's not closing.
Yes.
Why isn't it closing, Colleen?
Just hit leave meeting.
Oh, leave. Okay, I hit the X up in the corner.
I thought I left. Leave.
They said 6
They
months
said
to
6 months, I think, originally.
at a minimum. At a minimum.
6 months to a year.
Yeah.
So you could be on hold for a year as they're figuring out what happened, why it happened,
Right.
who should be doing it, should they do it, whatever. And then meanwhile, you're keeping all the equipment safe and ready to go.
Wait a minute, who said 6 months to a year? They said 6 months. I never.
That's what I heard originally, 6
I
months.
never heard
Minimum. At least.
what?
When I said it, I said at least 6 months.
A
Yeah,
minimum.
They said 6 months.
Just that's like getting a prosecutor to tell you how long the investigation's going to be.
I think we should plan on different alternatives.
I think it's smart to do that.
Yeah.
What happened to Ron?
I mean, listen, if the commission wants to hire their own people and do their own thing, you certainly have that ability. that's another way to go at this. Except, you know, then we have to figure out whether you guys can use the machines then. Probably not until the investigation, but.
Because you need the machines to study the
Yeah.
machines. When did the investigation start?
Within the week after it happened, so I guess that would be,
Mid-June?
yeah,
And who's doing the investigation?
it'd be Piosha.
OSHA and DEP?
Yeah, yeah. They're feds, but yeah, they work through DEP.
So they have scientists involved and all that type of thing, right?
I have no idea. I only met the team once to go over stuff.
I met them at the state park one day when I got word. It was late, either early July, I think, when the harvesters were moving around, and I stumbled upon the investigators. There was a team from DEP, and the one guy from DEP had a Marine background, and there were POSHA investigators there. And I was told that since we didn't do the day-to-day operations, they couldn't talk to the commission or me as a member of the commission. So everything had to go through DEP. That's what I was told.
That makes sense. Is our chairman here?
Colleen may be talking to him on the phone.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, that's right.
Got a phone to her ear.
What's the story, Colleen?
I just had to resend the link to Ron, and he'll be on in a second.
Did you send him the password?
He shouldn't need it.
Okay. Well, if it's going to be 6 months to a year, Todd, I'm glad you talked us off the cliff.
All right. Ron, unmute.
Okay, I'm in. I'm getting tired of these Zoom meetings. We got to start thinking about it. I'm serious. We got to start thinking about having real meetings. Everybody else is. Okay. So I guess the motion needs to be a resolution to appoint Northern Lights. What's the name of this company?
Northern Lights LLC.
Okay, LLC. A contract not to exceed $30,000 to harvest weeds in the Lake Hopatcong.
I'll make the motion.
Subject to the subcommittee working out the details.
Yes. Well, it's not to exceed 30,000. You guys will work out the.
I'll make the motion not to exceed $30,000, and the committee picks the number of days to not to exceed the $30,000.
Right. All right.
And the location, right?
Yeah.
And the location.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
Locations, make that a plural.
Yeah, locations.
I'll make it locations.
Okay, but guys, be prepared. So if you meet with this guy on Wednesday, or no later than Wednesday, we get going with. That's good. Okay. You want to call a roll, please, Colleen?
Sure. Crowley,
Yes.
Fish,
Yes.
Will Susan,
Yes.
McCarthy,
Yes.
Wozowski,
Yes.
Probst,
Yes.
Steinbaum,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Tessier,
Yes.
Solaro,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So before we adjourn, guys, thanks for a nice, it was a long, good discussion. Let's think about going live. We can find a spot big enough to keep social distance. Let's think about a live meetings from now on. Everybody else is starting to do it.
Can I still come by Zoom?
You can come by Zoom if you want. Yes, anybody is still welcome to come by Zoom. You don't want to make
No. I'm going to protest that one.
What?
I can barely just manage the Zoom, so.
Yeah, this is out of hand.
I'm
We don't
doing
need
it
to do
every day, all day, Ron, I know.
I know that's a pain in the butt. I'm doing the same thing, exactly.
But I'm not only doing Zoom, I'm doing Teams meetings, I'm doing Skype.
I know.
They all are different, you know?
We can start out, I mean, the locations I got in my mind tonight, which are not etched in stone, or the Lake Hopatcong train station. If you don't think it's big enough, we can go to the Jefferson Township Administration, Board of Education Administration Building. We'll find something. We're not going to get that much public, and we certainly can space out.
Or I can wear my mask and nobody's going to touch
Wear
me.
your mask. Keep your social distance.
No licking.
And a hat.
Ron, I think if you do that, you're still going to have to take people's temperatures coming into the meeting.
Maybe, I mean, we don't do that at the Board of Ed. When I'm having Board of Ed, we don't do it in the town council meeting, I don't think. Do we, Eric?
No, not required.
Not required.
Interesting.
So,
Just, Ron, just make sure that there's a big enough place for adequate.
of course. But the point is, it's just so cumbersome on everybody. It's just one of those things. Okay.
Eric,
Anybody else?
Could we use Camp Jefferson?
We could use Camp Jefferson, I believe. Can we, Mayor?
I know the mayor.
Okay.
Me too.
Put a word in.
That works.
Yeah, we could, right? You know what? Camp Jefferson's bigger.
That's a big
And
room.
that's a better
It's a big
place.
room.
Great thought. Great thought.
We'll need microphones if we all have masks on and we're far apart.
Well, once you're sitting socially distanced, some people you can remove your mask, but as long as you're not next to each other. But it doesn't matter. Yeah, we could. It's not that big. I think you can raise your voice enough. Okay.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Second, third, fourth.
Anybody in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
Aye.